Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is John Viglotti, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you joined us for our 3-day Battery and Precious Metals Conference. We'll kick off today with a live presentation from American West Metals. Please note you can submit questions in the box to the left of the slides for our presenter. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Dave O'Neill. He's the Managing Director of American West Metals Limited, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol AWMLF and on the ASX under the symbol AW1. Welcome, Dave.
Hello, John, and hello to investors and people out there, and welcome to what is certainly our first conference for 2024, and looking forward to sharing the story and kicking the year off with some what we think is a very significant copper story, which we've released some breaking news today, and happy to talk you through that. So for people that don't know American West Metals, we are an Australian company, like John referred to, on the ASX and OTCQB. And we actually have 3 projects, but we'll talk about mostly around our Storm copper project in Canada. But we also have 2 other projects in Utah and the US, West Desert and Copper Warrior. But given time and given, certainly our focus this year, we'll certainly focus on Storm today. Just a quick disclaimer, obviously there's forward-looking statements in here, and obviously there's a lot of technical information as well. So, I certainly encourage people to go to our ASX releases and other releases online for further information and other technical details that are covered in this presentation. So look, and it's also good to be kicking this conference off with something that might be useful for all copper explorers and copper producers and developers, is that, I guess, setting the scene for copper, setting the scene for why we think Storm is very important and will be in the future in terms of copper globally. As we all know, there's certainly consensus that there is a deficit in coming years. Is it 2024? Who knows? We've been talking about it for a while, but certainly all the macros suggest that's the case. One key thing as well, obviously, is that certainly the undeveloped and the mined copper grades globally are declining. Despite the big discoveries like Kamoa, Kakula, etc., the high 2% and billions of tons, etc., we're still seeing this global average of grades decrease, and certainly in the open pit environment. Mine costs, obviously, geopolitical locations with what's going on in the world at the moment, and ESG are always big issues and becoming even more important, particularly with supply chains, etc. And therefore, that we need to go to new places, new parts of the world, make new discoveries in jurisdictions where mining is accepted and is one of the driving parts of the economy. And look, we think the Storm project is certainly ticks all of these boxes. So Storm, I'll talk about this picture just quickly because there's a couple of things to pick up out of this. And yes, we are in the Arctic, but this is a photo from summer, and this gives you a sense of the vegetation where there is none, gives you a sense of the weather. We're in the Arctic desert, and I'll talk to location and infrastructure and logistics later, but certainly this photo portrays a few things, which is we are in a desert. So there's no vegetation, very low precipitation and very low snowfall, even winter. It does get cold, obviously, but this shows you how accessible the ground is to on-ground exploration and development. It's very easy to get around, and it's quite a favourable working environment. So Storm, the big news for us today is that we have managed to release our maiden resource. And we think that is really going to set a foundation for Storm. It puts a line under the valuation for us. And the other thing we can talk about today is the exciting, exceptional upside that there is with the Storm project. We left a lot of meat on the bone when we put this resource out. It's very conservative, and there's immediate resource growth and upside in the exploration space. The resource sits at around 17.5 million tonnes at 1.2% copper, which is over 200,000 tonnes of copper and almost 2 million ounces of silver. This makes a very good product with very high silver credits. So we are including silver in the resource estimation. A lot of the MRE is greater than 1.5% copper, which we think will give us outstanding resource and development opportunities. This is all near surface. Every deposit is open in every direction. And like I mentioned before, the high-grade discoveries we made during 2023, which is the Thunder, Lightning Ridge, Cyclone North, have not been included in the resource estimation. The other thing with the upside is that Storm is only covers only about 5% of a very extensive 100-kilometre copper belt. So we have geochemical and geophysical anomalies all the way along that. Other than that, like I said, it's close to surface, so it support a development with open pit mining. And the other thing, even though this is exposed at surface because of the permafrost, because of the way that the ore bodies have weathered, it's 100% copper sulfide. So there's no oxide here. So it can all be treated with traditional flotation, but also highly amenable. And this is where the kicker and what we're working on now is it's highly amenable to low-cost beneficiation processing techniques like ore sorting and other beneficiation techniques, which I'll talk to. So Storm, this is what it looks like. People that are familiar with the deposit and the project might recognize some of these areas, and that we haven't given them new names. We have, starting with a C. So, I guess that's a shout out to the copper in the deposits, but it's a very robust, JORC compliant. We are working on an NI 43-101 version of the resource at the moment in the background for our North American investors. And we think that this is obviously gives us an exceptional foundation for what we think is going to be a very global, significant copper project in the coming years. The resource highlighting quality and scale, and that's one thing that I think we've shown is that this mineralization is extensive. We're still learning a lot about it. It's robust, it's continuous, it's thick, it's particularly at the Cyclone deposit, which is the old 4100 North. It's been defined over 1,300 metres of strike and 400 metres in width. So we think this thing will grow, and I'll talk to that in a minute. Like I said, you can see with the purple shading there that even the coherent higher grade core, it is very extensive, and that gives us the option here. I mean, because this is all 100% open pittable, we've been able to cut this much finer and go down to a 0.35% cut-off grade for the resource. Now, that's highly comparable to other sediment-hosted copper deposits worldwide. Mateo, owned by Samphire Resources in Botswana, is the perfect example. They use a 0.3% copper cut-off and also a 1.5% copper. That's two grade domains and two bins that they use there. So you see this is very similar. And this actually has a better strip ratio and is much more flat-lying and amenable to the open pit development. In terms of upside, and like I said, we left a lot of meat on the bone. Like I said, we last year's discoveries at Thunder and Lightning Ridge are not in the resource. Cyclone North, we drilled a drill hole about 250 metres to the north of the Cyclone deposit and hit 7.5 metres at 1% copper. Now, in that interval was a 1.5 metres over 2% copper. So that sits on an EM anomaly. What the geophysics has shown us, what the drilling has shown us, that there's 100% correlation with EM anomalies in the near surface and copper sulfide. So we believe that weak at EM anomaly that has that drill hole 55 up there, is actually that's a 2% part of the anomaly that is showing the anomaly, 2% part of the mineralization. Sorry, that's showing that anomaly. Importantly, to the north of that, another 300 metres to the north, there's a much stronger fixed loop anomaly, and we believe that certainly at the Cyclone deposit that has the potential to increase 50 to 100% on the size it is now, which is roughly about 12 million tonnes. So these are big deposits. These are getting bigger. You can see along the South Grub and Fault there, you have the other 3 deposits. The other couple of discoveries that we made last year are in this vicinity as well. Some of the mineralization, the deposits here, are steeply dipping and fault hosted. So we believe that this fault network is a large, I guess, essentially joins all of these deposits up at depth at some point. Well, you can see here there's 6 or 7 extra areas where there's anomalies that some have drill holes in them and some don't. And some of them are flat lying and some of them are steeply dipping. So we believe that this is all exceptional resource areas where we can add to the resources this year. In that area alone, there's about 10 kilometres of strike within these faults that are completely untested. So as you can imagine, we can think that there's in particularly this year and then off into 2025, there's potential for multiples of the size of resource that we've put out today. I can see that there's a question on the board already about how much drilling we're planning for this year. So last year we did about 10,000 metres, and that's RC and diamond. That included resource definition, a little bit of metallurgical work, and also the deeper exploration and the more broad exploration. So we plan to increase that, hopefully double that this year. We'll be kicking things off late March, early April, and that'll be preceded by some further ground geophysics. We've shown that the ground EM and even the airborne EM is so effective here that we're going to roll out much more detailed surveys. We'd like to really flesh out some of these new resource potential areas. Now, it doesn't stop at Storm, like I discussed earlier. So this is an extensive belt we own with our joint venture partners, Aston Bay, 100% of the ground here. Storm covers about 5% of the known prospective copper horizon. We have outcropping copper at Tornado and Blizzard, which is about 10 kilometres to the southeast, and EM and gravity anomalies. Down at Tempest, we extended the strike of a known Gossan down there last year to about 4 kilometres. And that's 4 kilometres of outcropping zinc and copper-rich Gossans, and that's what's exposed at surface. Who knows what lies beneath? That's about 40 kilometres from the Tornado and Blizzard areas there. So there's also a prospective zinc horizon, and those who understand the project know that we also have the Seal high-grade zinc and silver deposit over there near the coast. So that's very similar to the Polaris deposit that was mined by Teck Kaminko back in the 80s and 90s. That's all confirmed that's the same mineralization event. Well, that zinc horizon actually heads to the south as well, and we have zinc geochemical anomalies along that as well. So this is a much bigger play. Sure, the exploration work's going to be focused on expanding the resources this year, but there's also going to be a significant component that's going to explore this belt and open up this belt with drilling, and also at depth at drilling. So a lot of exploration work to go with the resource definition. So I think that's one of the key strategies for our company. We want the resource development, we want the resource expansion, but we also want to explore. We don't want to become just a developer. We want to have the sugar hit exploration hits and give the speculative side of the investors a reason to invest in us as well. And, yes, we've got a very unique location. We have high-grade copper sticking out of the ground, and we can use traditional flotation. But the real benefit we see here is in test work that we've done today has shown that given the simplicity of the mineralization, so it's dominantly chalcocite, which is 80% copper, hosted by dolomite, which is altered limestone, is that simply by crushing this and sorting it and using jigs to and gravity techniques to separate the two mediums, we can make very cheaply and very low footprint wise and high ESG credentialed concentrate of we've made up to 53% copper by simple ore sorting, and that's crushing down to about an inch in size, separating the two, and that's what we've been getting. But look, given that as the deposits have grown and the work program's shown that this thing's being bigger and bigger, and obviously we're getting to the lower grade portions of the deposits as well, we're now looking at that 10 mil to 2 millimeter size fraction where we can recover a lot of the lower grade ores as well. And so we're working between yields versus throughput versus what what copper product do we want to sell, and what can we put out there. But either way, what it's looking at is mechanical beneficiation. What that means is there's no tailings, there's no reagents, there is very low capital costs, an order of magnitude lower than a traditional flotation hydrometallurgical plant. And it's obviously very low footprint from an ESG perspective. So, there's no tailings, like I mentioned. It's semi-mobile. So very clean, very efficient, and particularly when customers are looking for chain of custody and getting copper out of some pretty hairy parts of the world, we think we're going to give them a very good option to acquire copper from a tier one jurisdiction. Tier one jurisdictions, and that's what leads me to the next slide. That wasn't planned, but look, this is like I mentioned, we are in the Arctic, but as that photo shows, as this ship shows, is that the best place to be anywhere on the planet is obviously near the coast where you can use shipping. Shipping is obviously better than train, and obviously better than moving things by transport, road transport. Sorry. So we are accessible. We're on the Northwest Passage. We're very close to the hamlet of Resolute Bay to the north of us, about 100 kilometres to the north. So this is Storm's located slightly inland from Aston Bay, which is a deep water port. The sea lift ships come into this part of the world regularly to supply Resolute, Cambridge Bay, all of the other mines up in this part of the world. You have Mary River, the old mine Nana Civic. You've got Back River and Hope Bay, and those places with supplies. That ship can go anywhere. We can go out west to the Asia. We can go out east to Europe, and obviously back down to Canada as well. So this is the long-lived mining district. I think there's 8 operating mines in the Northwest Territories, and none of it at the moment. Some of these are very big mines. Obviously, iron ore mine up there as well, which is, so from everything from gold to bulk materials as well. So this is a metallogenic district. None of it has been fantastic in terms of their support and rolling the red carpet out for people. And obviously with this new, they're going to be taking ownership and stewardship of all the mineral resources shortly from the Canadian government. So it's a fantastic place to work. We are in the desert, like I mentioned before. In terms of shipping, it's open 3 to 4 months of the year, icebreaker free, but I think you can go longer if you do have an icebreaker class ship, and that's not a problem. Mining here is all year round. So, you can mine. Essentially, people think that it's seasonal. Well, I can assure you, working in Central Australia right now is probably hell on earth, with 50-degree plus temperatures and cyclones, etc. And that's also seasonal. So like any part of the world, weather can be a factor. Yes, we have one long night shift and one long day shift, but that's managed by the mines up here. And then it's about being prepared and having the right infrastructure to support your people. Now, what we've got planned for this year, and this goes to the question that was put to us earlier, and I think, look, what the resource we've put out today has certainly set a foundation for us to grow as a company, but also as a significant copper asset. So resource expansion is obviously first. Like I showed, there's all these wonderful places where we can put a drill rig on tomorrow and start adding tons. All of the deposits are open in every direction. And like I said, we don't have a single resource drill hole in Thunder and Lightning Ridge. And just to remind you, Thunder was about 50 metres at 3% copper, pretty close to surface. So that's an obvious place to and go and test with the resource definition rig. But we want to explore all of those high grade and fault controlled deposits in the near surface have only been explored to a vertical depth of 100 metres. We know these faults continue for kilometres. All of our deeper drill holes that we drilled last year show that there is copper down about 300 to 400 metres vertical depth. So we believe that these faults will link up at some point, and there should be similar deposits, what we see in the top 100 metres, every 100 metres from there on. So this is going to be exciting time for us, testing the next parameter space, which is that next 100 to 200 metres, and also around these large fault systems. Obviously, drilling and geophysics is going to test these regional areas as well. where we've got copper and geophysical anomalies exposed at the surface. Project development is going to continue as well. We're looking at the mining studies. We're looking at the processing studies, which we'll have news on shortly. And we're also looking at the economics as well, because obviously the economics is the piece here that's going to make the difference for us when we can show how high margin and low cost this simple beneficiation technique is, particularly with these kind of ore bodies, these very high grade open pit resources. That's going to be certainly a penny drop moment for a lot of investors. And obviously, there's the stewardship and the environmental monitoring liaison with the communities, and obviously getting the permitting underway for what we think will be a fairly robust project. And we think all that's going to obviously add to transformational change for the company. The focus exploration, the resource expansion, again, pushing those two strategies. We think this thing's going to grow quickly, and I think even with that expansion potential slide, you can see that if all of those were going to be resources, that this thing will double. So certainly our focus is to use 2024 to expand as quick as we can, and then who knows what happens during the years that follow that. So again, just to the three highlights is the maiden resource has really delivered what we believe is just a start of a very long copper story. It is one of the few undeveloped high-grade open pit copper opportunities. I mean, you look at some of our peers on the ASX, and certainly our copper grades are similar to what a lot of people are publishing for underground resources. I think the 0.43% copper number I mentioned earlier in the presentation is all copper deposits globally, not just the open pit ones. I think you'll find that the open pit average grade is much lower than that. We have the demonstrable growth and development potential, which I've talked to, and this is truly a district scale opportunity. Like I said, we own 100% of a 100-kilometre long belt. It's highly prospective. We've shown that now, and there's a lot more work to do. And essentially that's it for Storm. That's all I'll talk to here. Please go online, and we've just completed drilling at Copper Warrior project in Utah during December and November. So go and look at some of the results of that. And also we've published our maiden resource, indium and gold resource for our West Desert project in Utah as well. So I encourage people to go to our website where they can find us, and certainly to have a look at our other projects and our wide portfolio, which has got a very strong copper focus now, but we also have over 1.3 million tons of zinc in there as well at West Desert, which is worth having a look at as well. So time for Q&A. I'll start to look at some of these questions and give some feedback to guys. But one of the questions that we've covered already is how much drilling we're planning for the year, and I've touched on that. Look, I'd like to think we could do twice as much as we did last year, increasing the number of rigs, etc. Certainly we can do 50% more, I think, as a minimum, but we'll certainly be planning for doubling things. And look, we also want to expand the season. So one of the, traditionally you'd stop in sort of late August. This year we're going to be working hard to at least keep one diamond rig going for as long as we can into the back end of the season. And that was it can be on resource definition, metallurgical, geotech, and a bunch of other things to do, while the bulk of the project sort of closes down for the winter period. We've got another question here. How close to surface is the copper? So 3 of the ore bodies out of the 4 are exposed at surface, so they outcrop. The 4, and they're all subvertical to sort of shallow dipping. The Cyclone deposit is completely blind. It's flat lying, roughly dips about 5 degrees to the north, so that will need to be stripped first before mining. But it's, as you can see from the pictures, laterally extensive. Our drilling most of the resource drilling, like I said, is only down to about 100 meters vertical depth. We have explored below that. We have explored with deep diamond drilling last year and the year prior, down to about 350, 400 meters vertical depth. So there will be a couple of exploration holes drilled this year into those kind of depths as well, but the vast majority will be in the plus 200 meters, so fairly shallow. Another question here: milestones for what are your milestones for 2024, and can you speak to the capital position to support? I sure can. So, look, I think I touched on our milestones is certainly to see resource growth as a first instance. Obviously, to get the metallurgical test work out there in the market, because that'll start to throw some economics around, the development potential of the project. So those are the two key things to show the, I guess, the economic viability and the high margin opportunity that we think Storm's going to present. And then obviously the exploration as well. We want to progress, and we want to progress the resource and the exploration work hand in hand. We think they're both going to add significant value for this project, and we do have the capital. So as we speak right now, we have $4 million in the bank. That is certainly enough to get us a fair way into the year. We've also got over $5 million in very well-priced options that are set to come in and actually expire this year as well. So we expect that to come in certainly in the coming months as well. So that should put us in a very good position to hopefully be able to complete the exploration program up at Storm this year. I've got another one here. Shall the 43-101 estimates be materially different? The short answer to that is no. They will use the exact same mineral resource estimation, including the grade, tonnage curves, etc. There may be some changes to under 43-101 legislation or rules where, and even up to whether we use the same cutoff grade, or when that's published, is do we change that, go more hard on it or softer? And my guess is that it'll likely be very, very similar. And look, and just in terms of costs that we use for the mineral resource estimation, we use today's copper price. We're not putting bullish, we're preparing this project for today. If copper stays like this for the next 20 years, that we want to make sure that this thing will come out of the ground as it is. And so we're using very, very conservative numbers in our estimations. Another question here. What infrastructure is in place for your project? So all year round, we have I think it must be up to a 40-man camp at the moment. We bought some new tents, but that's on site all year round, and that has all the facilities to support a very large exploration team. That's got a kitchen, fuel, ablutions and accommodation, and that's there all year round. Essentially, we just fly into that. So there's no airstrip required per se. Use the aviation that we use. We can fly twin otters and land either on the snow and ice or straight on the stones. It's very flat, as you could potentially see from that very first picture. So that's the only infrastructure on site. Obviously, we have the two diamond rigs are on site all year round, and the RC rigs come and go depending on the operator's need in other parts of the world. So it's very well equipped. We essentially just fly in, turn the things on, clean it up, and then off we go. So it's very quick to get up and running. It takes less than a week, with a properly trained crew. So essentially, once we get up there in March, we'll be ready to start operations. Hopefully I've answered all these questions everyone's liking. Another question here. How long for more details on the DSO? Well, working on that, there's now work going on in Perth at the moment, and we won't present details until those tests are complete. The reasons for that is there's no use putting out information that's not complete and without context. And I think if we can show that we've used a range of beneficiation and ore sorting techniques, which ones work, which ones don't work, and we can also show that flotation works as well. It just gives a nice wraps it up in a bow and shows the economics in much more plainly to see. And I think it's good to put it in context. So that's all underway. It shouldn't be too long. I hate giving exact timelines because people hold you to the day, but certainly we're very advanced in those studies, and hopefully can get news out to the market shortly. And that looks like about it from the questions and also time. So look, thanks for joining. I hope you have a great conference. You can get us at our website at americanmetals.com. And our contact details are also on the back of our presentation. So yeah, I look forward to hopefully talking